Good evening, and welcome to the Writer's Block. I'm your host, John Ronan, and during our half-hour shows, as I think you know now, because we're in our 24th year, I interview writers about their craft, what they've done in the past, what they're working on now, what they might have planned for the future. We have on poets, we have on fiction writers, we have on journalists, all sorts of writers. We even stretch to other kinds of artists. We've had on actors, we've had on musicians, we've had on sculptors, all kinds of talented people. It's a pretty wide net we cast, and if you have ideas for an artist, writer or not, who might be a good guest for the Writer's Block, please watch for our address at the end of the program. We'd be glad to get your suggestions. I also want to remind you that Cape Ann TV, which produces the Writer's Block and many other original programming efforts here on Cape Ann, is a product of cable access television. You can't get this with Dish, so be warned. Tonight, we do have a writer. Her name is Daisy Nell, a name I'm sure you've heard about if you've been anywhere in New England over the last few decades, because she is a renowned performer, singer, writer, composer, and author of children's books. And we're going to talk about one of her books, a new book, Captain Stan's Foo-Foo Band. Daisy Nell, and you'll see a super on the screen of her website, is a native of Essex, Mass, and is a folk singer and songwriter with a long history of school, museum, and shipboard performances. She has performed throughout New England and as far away as Hawaii and Alaska with her husband Stan Collinson and their band Crabgrass. She has several CDs and her parents' Choice Award-winning children's album, Bought Me a Rooster. She is the author of two previous children's books. She is the author of two previous children's books, The Stowaway Mouse and Rocky at the Dockside. Both of those previous books and this book are illustrated by a gentleman I hope to have on the show next year, George Ulrich. Daisy Nell, welcome to the Writer's Block.
Well, hi, John. Thank you for having me.
I want to first say to our audience where they can buy Captain Stan's Foo-Foo Band.
Well, right here in Gloucester, the bookstore, and they've done a terrific job. I think I have my own shelf down there now. I'm very happy to say. Toad Hall Bookstore in Rockport, Russell Orchards in Ipswich, and Sea Meadow Gifts in Essex, Peabody Essex Museum, and on Amazon. The bookstore in Beverly Farms also carries them. So there are a few other places around. People can always contact me and find out where they can get a book. Sometimes people just daisynell.com or when they see me around the area.
Tell us about the conception and the execution of Captain Stan's Foo-Foo Band, which came out, we should say, last year because we're being broadcast in the new year.
That's right.
Came out in 2013.
Right.
Tell us how long you worked on it and when it was published.
Well, the first two books took place on board or around the subject of the schooner Ardell, and that is a schooner that most people around Cape Ann know about, built in Essex, and built by and sailed by Harold Burnham. So we've moved on from the Mouse and the Parrot, and now I was talking with George Ulrich, and he said he really wanted me to write another book, and he said he really wanted it to be about Stan. And I said I wanted it to be about a banjo. And so he said, well, can't you just work on that and come up with some combination? And in fact, this story is about the real Captain Stan and his real band, our band, Crabgrass.
Your real Captain Stan, your husband.
Right, my husband, Stan Collinson, otherwise known as Captain Stan. And we did have, for 10 years, we had a beautiful schooner built by Brad Story in Essex called Shearwater. So I took that real piece of our own schooner that we had for a long time and fictionalized it into a charter schooner out of Gloucester Harbor and turned the story into Captain Stan wanting to have a foo-foo band, which is an old-fashioned way of having something like a jug band. But a foo-foo band in the old days was a band of made-up instruments. Comes from the French word fou, which means crazy. And foo-foo was a band that, you know, the crew could have found any old instrument, anything, a jug or spoons and washboard, wash tub, bass, all that. And so in the story, Captain Stan is looking forward to foo-foo night. He loves to have his foo-foo band get together, and it's all his crew. So his crew are actually musicians. So in the book, the backstory is that the crew are, they really are the real band. We all have nicknames. And so in the story, I'm Nellie Bell. And our bass player is Jack Schwartz, but in the story, he's called Dr. Fish. And there's an interesting reason why that you have to read the book to find this out, because it's a little complicated. But our mandolin player, Pat Conlon, is Mailman. And so the crew all gets together when it's time for foo-foo night, and they bring out all their instruments and have a wonderful time.
What age group is this book targeted to?
Well, I work with second graders a lot, and in the Essex and the Rockport schools, and that seems to be a targeted age. Although kids as young as 4 like the story, and certainly older than second grade, up to 8, 9, 10, they like the story because of, I think the story about it's kind of a funny story where Captain Stan gets into a little trouble when he starts making plans for foo-foo night. And then there's the music that goes with it as well.
I wanted to hold up the book. If you open Captain Stan's Foo-Foo Band, you see on the inside of the front cover a CD, a CD, yeah.
It's a CD.
Compact disc with the band's performance on it. We are not going to be able to hear any of that tonight, but you'll be able to pull this CD out when you buy the book and listen to the music as you read the book.
So the music is the song that comes out of the story. In the story, Nellie Bell writes a song, and the crew presents it to Captain Stan. And we had a ton of fun putting this together. A lot of people around here might know Barry O'Brien, a videographer and wonderful singer and performer, a musician himself. He filmed a video, which you can find on YouTube, and inside each book there's a link to that to find it. We filmed it at the Essex Shipbuilding Museum, and we put the Foo-Foo Band together, and I wrote a square dance to go with the song, and we had a multi-age, multi-generational group down there to film this.
At the museum?
Barry O'Brien filmed it one night down at the museum, and they had been actually building boats there that day, so the floor was appropriately covered with sawdust and shavings and all the trappings of the shipbuilding museum. So it was a very fun video to make. One of my granddaughter actually danced with me in the film.
Maybe you can incorporate that into a program here on Cape Ann Television.
I'd love to do that. I do that in schools. In the schools, I teach the dance and read the story and teach the dance, and the kids have a good time learning about what foo-foo is.
Would you read a section of the book that gives us a sense of the flavor and the tone,
Sure.
the level of the book and the story?
Right. Now, if I hold up this page, will you see the picture of Captain Stan?
I will hold that.
You hold up the pictures, and I'll
if we can get that on camera here.
There we are. Captain Stan was standing at the rail of his little green schooner, Shearwater. He was squinting into the sunlight, looking up the mast at the weather vane. It was another beautiful day on Gloucester Harbor. Every day of the summer, Captain Stan took passengers out on Shearwater to show the way things were done on wooden fishing schooners in the days of old. He had just dropped off a load of happy passengers and was taking a moment to enjoy the view of his favorite place of all. Now, where did I put my sunglasses? He asked himself. He tapped his pants pockets on both sides, then patted his shirt pocket. He pulled out his sunglasses, but along with them came his harmonica. It bounced on the railing and plopped right into the water. With his eyes bulging and his mouth wide open, he stared down at the sea. All that was left was a little ripple. "Whoops," he said. "Now what will I play in tonight's foo-foo band?" The phrase foo-foo came from the French word fou, which means foolish. On old-time sailing ships, playing foo-foo music meant making instruments out of anything the crew could find around the ship: cooking pots, jugs, twine, or even tools. People call it a music jam today, but Captain Stan really liked to say foo-foo. But most of all, he loved to play foo-foo. Nothing made him happier than belting out all the old tunes with his crew, who were all musicians as well as sailors.
Have you lived these incidents? Did somebody lose a harmonica over
Well, if it
shipside?
were only a harmonica, it's more likely a cell phone or a watch or a wallet.
There goes another Rolex. Huh?
Well, hardly, but still.
When did you conceive this book, Daisy?
Well,
Now you touched on that.
I did. When George Ulrich asked me about writing this book,
What date would that be exactly?
well, as it turns out, there's another character in the story, a fellow named Fred, who was a mutual friend, and Fred passed away a year ago, and he was a wonderful fiddler, and he was a spoons player. So Fred was a great guy to have at a party, and when we lost Fred, we were all talking about, all the great musicians that we've known in our life and how lucky we are to have a family of musicians that we've been able to play music with all these years. And it started to germinate in my mind that if I were to make a book, make a story, it would be a funny story, a fun story, but it would also be my own way of honoring a life of playing music and celebrating that in a way that I could entertain the kids in my life. And
So I'm interested in that now, from the conception of the book to its being introduced.
Yes.
How long a period was that, and what kind of work schedule did you have to plan to get the book out in time?
well, I asked George if he would draw the pictures for this, and he said, sure, just start writing the story. George lives in Marblehead. And once the seed was planted, these things, as a writer yourself, they don't just go to bed. My mind is cooking, and I'm working on it. And when I least expect it, another idea comes into my head, and I need to go work on it. So once I get a basic idea in my mind, and I have a format for it, I start to write it down, and it comes pretty quickly. And then I put it away for a few days and go back to it and rework it. So in that process, I think from start to finish, it was really a couple of months. And I was ready with the story to give to George to start drawing in a month or 6 weeks or so. And then I made some slight changes in the story and started working with an editor. And then we were ready to finalize the details of the drawings.
And what date did it come out officially?
June.
June of
2013.
13.
Yeah.
You mentioned George Ulrich, the illustrator, a couple of times. I'm going to show a couple of more pictures of his very bright,
Yeah.
high-key, colorful illustrations.
Yeah.
Who are we seeing here?
That's the crew member called Mailman. And he's called that because he delivers so many wonderful notes. But he's also the navigator, and he helps deliver the ship.
And who is he
In real life,
based on?
he's based on Pat Conlon, who I'm sure a lot of people here remember if they ever had their mail delivered in East Gloucester by Pat Conlon, or if they ever saw the Megawatt Blues Crushers or the Gumby Brothers or our band Crabgrass. That's Jack Schwartz. In the story, that's him. He's playing the washtub bass, and he's Dr. Fish. And in real life, Jack actually is an ichthyologist, a doctor of fish.
Fish?
Yes, but he also plays wonderful scales, and he's the ship's carpenter, so he helps doctor things that are broken. So that's my own little backstory there.
Oh, I can go to the next
There's Fred.
figure. This is
That's Fred. Now
Fred.
his name in the story, he's Cookie, because he is the cook, and he stirs up all kinds of good soups and stews with those spoons, but he starts playing the spoons to keep time with the band, and then he's really cooking. I love the drawing. Look
and
at
in
those.
real life,
He was a great musician and a great spoons player, and he's the fellow that we lost a year or so ago, Fred
that
Finkel.
inspired this.
Yeah,
Inspired the
yeah.
book.
We dedicated this to him and his family. There's Captain Stan. He's walking
This is
home.
Captain Stan again. If I can get that on camera. There we go. It's Captain Stan. Have we seen the entire crew now? I wanted
Yes,
to show
I think you've
everyone.
probably seen me, although there is a picture of me, and I have to say that George was very kind. I came out looking more like Dora the Explorer than
This.
yes, and
Here is Daisy Nell as
Nellie Bell.
Nellie Bell, a.k.a. Dora the Explorer. Your hair color's a little
Yes,
changed there.
yeah. George was kind. He gave me some years.
I want to ask, because I get quizzed on this, what advice you would have for someone who wants to do a similar project. How do you start?
Well, once you've decided to do it, you can't let anything stand in your way. I mean, there are ingredients like cooking. You need an oven. You need pots and pans, and a recipe. But if you're determined to do it, with self-publishing the way it is now, there's no reason not to. I mean, if you waited to send out a copy to get picked up by a publishing company, you might die of old age first, because it's an impossible business, and the market is really flooded. I made a conscious choice to be local, and I'm happy being local, and I've done pretty well being local. And so I do a lot of my own marketing, and I'm lucky to have a musical stage where I can present the whole idea that I'm now writing children's books. So I have an audience to tell about the books, because advertising and press coverage, you get it where you can, but it's a lot of grassroots, a lot of word of mouth. And
By local, you don't mean simply Essex.
No,
or
I mean
simply Gloucester.
Cape Ann and Massachusetts
Our
and
catchment area is Essex,
yes,
Manchester,
Yes.
Rockport, and Gloucester.
Right.
So how far beyond that immediate area do you go?
Well, we play in a festival in Maine every summer up on Swans Island, and the schooners come in there, and there's an audience of people who are out on the windjammers for a few days, and we always do well selling books there. So we've developed a following there that Swans Island is right off of Jericho Bay, near Blue Hill Bay, and the schooners come over from Rockland. So a lot of those passengers have purchased books over the last few years, and people have bought the books to put into the library in Camden and in Rockland. And we've played at Jim Sharp's Museum of Steam, Power, and Sail over in Rockland, where there's also
Jim Sharp's the former owner of
Schooner
Adventure.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm. And so we have a little following there as well. And there's pockets, little pockets, just like with music, little pockets here and there where one thing leads to another.
So is the public relations and the sales almost as important as the concept and the execution?
Well, you have to want to do it for the sake of doing it. You want it to have life. And once you've given it life, I mean, that in itself is you've put a frame around your work, and there it is. If to market it or to get it out there for somebody else to know about it, that's when you have to switch hats and put on your marketing hat and try to have the word get around, and hopefully it's word of mouth, and that people like it, or their friends or their kids or grandkids like it, and they'll spread the word. I work in the Essex and the Rockport schools, so I have families right there whose kids fortunately really love the books, and so I have a little built-in audience there, which is terrific, because it feeds me with ideas and with the enthusiasm and encouragement.
When you're writing a book, do you test out sections?
Yes.
On the kids?
Yeah. Well, I test them out on Stan. He's a good critic, but he's also very loyal. So then I have to test it out on some a little bit younger kids.
And they give you honest,
oh yeah,
honest
well,
feedback?
kids are you know, they're pretty straightforward with.
Can you give us an example of something you tried on them and changed because of the second grader's reaction?
Well, in the story, Captain Stan, after he loses his harmonica, goes home to get his guitar because he's worried he won't have an instrument to play in the Foo Band. So, as I described Captain Stan's arrival at the house, in the story he gets a little distracted. First he sees this and that, and the next thing, and he's, before he knows it, he's gotten himself into all kinds of projects at home that he didn't intend to do. And then he remembers what he's supposed to be doing, which is getting his guitar and going back to the harbor. And I started to write a description of him getting dressed in a hurry. And one of the kids thought that it would be funnier if I got to the point sooner. So because I had a little bit more of an elaborate description of Captain Stan putting on his
So they weren't
suspenders and then
patient
trimming.
with
No, they wanted me to hurry up and get to the story. So we did, and you know, I thought that was good advice.
One of Elmore Leonard's guidelines was leave out the parts that readers tend to skip.
Yeah, if you could only know, right?
So you try it out on those potential readers.
Right, and you know, my own grandchildren or friends' grandchildren, because they're the ones you can tell just from looking at them. If they start to glaze over, then you know you've lost them.
And they're used to television editing and wham bam.
In this world, right?
Yeah.
It's absolutely.
Could you pick out another brief section that gives us a little more of the sense of the tone, and maybe tell us what the music is that corresponds to the section you've chosen?
Well, the music that goes with this is at the end of the story when Captain Stan gets back. Yes, the band gets together and they've written a song for him. But this is the part where he gets home, and Captain Stan, when he got home, the first thing he saw was a pile of logs near his shed. Better take care of that, he said to himself. Soon he had a nice pile of split wood all stacked up. He went inside to get a glass of water and sat down in his favorite chair. He picked up the Gloucester Daily Times. His eyelids soon drooped as he dozed off for a moment, but he snapped his head upright when he snorted a little half-snore. He stood up. I need to shake a leg, he said out loud. He took his guitar down from a hook on the wall and noticed that one of its strings was broken. He sat back down and changed the string. He hummed a chord and thought, maybe I can finally find the right rhyme for the Foo Band song I've been working on. He could never get past the first 3 words. To the tune of, this old man, he played one, he sang, Foo Band, you who land. Nah, that doesn't work. Let's see. Foo Band, true blue sand, foo, boo-hoo, phooey. I can't think of anything.
Very nice. Very nice. There was almost an unintentional comment there on the Gloucester Times.
Oh.
He opens the Gloucester Times and starts to sleep. Starts to go to sleep. I'm sure that's not intended.
Oh, not at all. No. Who would do that?
I wanted to ask the concrete question. How much does this cost?
The book and the CD come as a package, so I sell them for $20.
$20. I think that's a bargain.
I do.
Don't you?
Yeah.
I want to remind our audience that the CD is in the. Can we get that? I want to show this again. The CD is in the front inside cover of the book, and you get the CD and the book, and they are available all over Cape Ann.
Right.
I got the 5-minute signal from Dick about a minute ago. I want to ask you what's next.
Well, I never know what's next. I don't have any immediate plans for writing another book. I said that a year ago, but I might take some time this year to do some more work with schools. I was really glad to get do a program. I do about a 7 to 9 week residency in the Essex Elementary School, and this year in Rockport. second grade. And what I do is a program on folk music, what it is, different kinds of instruments that are used in traditional folk music, and then we talk about writing. And we do a little writing project. So I'd love to do more of that, and so I might expand that and use the books as a way to do more school programs and work with young people on singing and writing and just creative projects. So I'm
busy.
I'm trying to, you know, I'm trying to leave a little space for something that I hadn't planned on.
And how frequently do you perform?
Well, Stan and I play with the band probably once a month is about our average, and then in the summertime it's a little busier than that. But who knows? We might be able to play more. Depends on what the guys are doing. You know, these musicians are independent sorts. Have to rope them in.
It's like cats.
Yeah,
herding cats.
herding cats.
How many are in the group?
Well, we have 4 who are regularly in our band, and we have a fiddle player who often plays with us named Dusty Clampett, and that is his real name.
Dusty
People are
Clampett.
always asking me if my name is my real name, and then when we got Dusty Clampett, they thought, okay, what's with the names? And but like the Foo Foo Band, we all have funny names.
The last time I saw you, it was at the Orchard in Ipswich.
Yes.
And it was big. It was maybe 8.
Well, sometimes we have extra people come and play when we're playing at Russell Orchards. Sometimes we bring in some extra friends, and we call that Orchard Jam.
It was like that. It was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. It's not quite the Foo Foo Band. I have to tell you that our bass player, Jack Schwartz, he was very, in the video, which you can see that free on YouTube. Just look up Captain Stan's Foo Foo Band on YouTube. Jack was very willing and very a good sport about playing the washed-up bass, but it is not quite as in tune and accurate as a real bass.
So Captain Stan's Foo Foo Band is on YouTube.
Yeah, right on YouTube.
So there's all kinds of ways that our
You can
television
hear the
audience
song, right? You can
can-
hear the song and watch the dance and see the band in action.
Good. I want to remind our audience that we are talking about Captain Stan's Foo Foo Band, Daisy Nell's new book, illustrated by George Ulrich, with a CD in it, so that you can listen to the actual band that is put together and conceived in the book. Daisy Nell, thanks for being with us.
Oh, thank you for having me, John. Really
I
appreciate it.
appreciate you coming down and learning about the new project.
Thank you.
Good continued luck with it.
Thank you so much.
If you've learned something about Daisy Nell's new book and Captain Stan and where to get it and where to see it on YouTube, then the Writer's Block has done its job. I hope to see you again next week when we will continue our job and move in towards the end of our 24th year. Thanks for being with us, and I hope to see you again next week. Good night.